In this episode of Kids Podcast, I am honored to share wisdom with you about leading kids in your church and in your home. Dealing with kids is hard work, and I'm praying that we add some tools to your tool belt today. So let's dive into today's topic. Let's plan an all-nighter. On this episode of Kids Podcast, we sit down together and we talk about what it takes to plan an all-nighter with your kids. Oh, that's exciting. So let's dig in on this episode of Kids Podcast. I'm Ron Gale, this episode's podcast host. And here on Kids Podcast, we're all about leading kids and their leaders into an overflowing life with Jesus. So let's dive into this awesome topic of staying up really late for no good reason to our body and doing it because we love our kids. Boom. Okay, so let's dive into this because hey, if you are planning an all-nighter with your kids, your teenagers, or just planning to stay up all night, you're crazy. You're crazy. If you're going to go help your leader to plan an all-nighter and stay up all night with a bunch of kids, you're crazy. Real crazy. If you're trying to figure out how you're going to do it, doesn't matter. You're crazy. You're real crazy. Like, all-nighters are crazy. But hey, I get it. I understand. Of all the things that we do for kids ministry, youth ministry, even our kids at home, because I've done all-nighters for all three, I don't do them for me because, hey, it's crazy. I do them for the kids. If you've ever wondered, like, why do people do it? Well, it's because the kids want it. If you just tell the kids we're going to stay up all night long, you will get kids to show up. And it's weird how that works, but they do. It's the one event a year that I do, and I get woodwork kids showing up, and it's like, I've never seen you before, but you're here at this one specific event. What's going on? So, all-nighters. Let's talk about it. And I'm going to say this, the thing that I say all the time when it comes to planning these things. 1, lead with vision. If you've got a visual in your mind, if you've got an imaginary image in your mind, if you've got this idea of what it's going to look like, lead with that. Make your decisions based on that. So how I do it, how I have done it, how I've attended them, doesn't really matter. It's how you want to deal with it, how you want to see it accomplished. So everything else doesn't really matter. But let's say, hey, you don't know where to go. You don't know how to start. Let's start with this. So there are 3 ways that I know of to plan an all-nighter. Let's walk through all 3. The first is the one where you network. The networking version. This is where you get the youth pastor down there, the one pastor over there, and you have 4, 5, 6, 7 pastors involved. Maybe 10, maybe 12. I've done it before where there were like over 100 different youth groups. Yes. I was in a ministry once in New York, and the network was heavily involved, and we had thousands of kids show up for an all-nighter. It was a big to-do. It was like a mini conference, and it was really cool. Definitely would recommend it, especially if someone else is leading it. And but the smaller versions of it are just as good. You have 2 or 3 youth groups involved, maybe 6 or 7 youth groups involved, and yeah. Now the idea is that not that you're throwing all these kids in one room and staying up all night long, but it's that you're batching the entire night. And so the one key component that everyone needs to be on the same page about is what do we care about? What do we want to do? So most church-based environments is, hey, we want to do a service, an actual service. And so they all get together. They do one big service. The kids hear about Jesus. They worship him. They get emotional, and then that's over and done with, and then we go on to the activities, and everything is batched out. Now you can batch it out however you want. You can batch the whole night out into 3 parts. You can batch it out into 5 parts. You can batch it out into every hour. It doesn't really matter. That is the liberty of the planner. Uh, so, for example, when we did the big one, it was batched into 3 parts. You had your 1,000 kids divided into 3 parts. So there's 300 kids going to the movie theaters, 300 kids going over to the skating rink, and then 300 kids going over to the sporting arena. So, yeah, 3 parts. And then it was like every, I think, 2 or 3 hours. Then they rotated. Yeah, about the timeline of a movie. And how it worked is we rented out all 3 places for the whole night. And after 2 or 3 hours, everyone gets in the van that they got there in. And they carpooled over and they rotated. And they just did it 3 times. And then by morning, everyone had experienced a movie, had experienced the skating rink, and had experienced the sporting arena. You know, the batting cages, the go-karts, and all that jazz. Laser tag was definitely a big win. Arcades. So that's one way of doing it. The big networking version. You can go into the smaller version of the networking where there's just 2, 3, 7, maybe even 10 youth groups. You might have like 100 or 200 kids, and you can do the same concept. And maybe you don't go from one rental to the next rental, but you stay at the same building. That works too. I've done that. The key to these though is to have a schedule that offers change up and activities. Because if you don't plan anything, well, the kids will start planning things for you. And sometimes that's fun, and sometimes that's like, whoa, hey now, what are you guys doing? Get out of that closet. And we don't want that. And then if you really, really want to, even in the networking concept, you can be at one big rental and you can plan every hour on the hour so that everyone is doing something. Yeah, but that's the first version. The second version of an all-nighter is just your group. And maybe you want to bring your best friend's group too. I did this a lot with kids ministry, not just youth ministry. We would stay up all night doing kids ministry stuff in one building and one building only. Now, the more you begin to rent things, obviously the price goes up. So I started to do it in, say, our Family Life Center or the one building that was not the church. And that cut down cost a lot because you're not paying for the rental of a movie theater, you're not paying for the rental of this, you're not paying for the rental of that. You only have to worry about the one facility and taking care of it. So that's how we rolled with it with the kids department. Now, what was important to me was having some sort of service that pointed everything back to Jesus, because our entire ministry was all about pointing people to Jesus. It was all about leading kids into an overflowing life with Jesus. So we were adamant and purposeful about planning some sort of service. I've done it in a couple of ways, but I'm going to tell you the one that was the most successful. The one that was most successful was when we showed up and had dinner together right away and then went right into a service. And I think that was the most successful for a couple of reasons. One was because the kids were not hangry from showing up at 5 p.m., 6 p.m. With an empty stomach. Now they were given food, given something to do. Then we went in the service and they were ready to engage in the gospel. The one time we did it later in the evening, like 1 o'clock, and that was because the speaker wasn't going to show up until 12, that kind of thing. And that was a huge mistake. The kids were exhausted, they were tired, and they were not engaged. So if you're going to do a service, I strongly encourage you to do the important thinking stuff first. Then go on to the things that are not so important, the things that might, just be fun and activity based. Now, in this version of an all-nighter where we're all stuck in the same building and it's just a smaller group of people and it's just us, which is nice because the relationships build, the camaraderie builds. When you have networking going on, the only thing that really builds is the leaders. The kids, they might get to know you and they might get to know that kid over there, and it becomes a thing. I get it. And it's fun because you get to do much cooler things than you would otherwise. And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just talking through different ways that I've done these things. Uh, I like the smaller environment more. And that might be more because of my personality type. I like small environments. I don't like crazy attendance, theme park kind of vibes. If I walk into a room and there's a million people, I get upset real fast. Low EQ on those moments. That's me. You might want to do the big version. Fine, go for it. Excellent. Lead with vision. When I was leading with vision, I wanted this version of a smaller environment, just our group in our building at a low cost. And I enjoyed doing it with both the teenagers and with the kids. So that's the second way of doing it. The third way we would do it, which is the way that I began to adopt towards the end, is not really an all-nighter. It was more of a late-nighter. Yeah, we changed it up. Instead of going all night long with a network of people, instead of going all night long with just our people, we went just late night enough. Like mom and dad picked them up by 12:30 midnight. And that was just as successful. And this was fruitful for both the leaders and their kids, because although there were a handful of kids that were adamant about staying up all night long, honestly, the next day, you get these messages from mom and dad like, awesome, thank you, we love you, our kid is asleep all day long, thanks a lot. And you just get miserable kids that are cranky and things like that. The challenge I came into as a leader was all of our leaders were tired. And the one time I was forced to stay up all night long, which I had done it where we would switch off and get some rest. And I've done it where I didn't need to do that. But as I got older, it became much more difficult for me to stay up all night long. And I would get slap happy, like around 5, 6 a.m., like bobblehead tired. And it was super difficult to focus, stay attentive, and be a good kids pastor. Well, let's just be honest. Yeah. Now, the key to all three is having some sort of batched schedule. So whether you do all night with a network, all night in your own little building, or all night, half night, this is contextualized at home. I do this exactly the same way when I do it with my kids at our house. I'm a big proponent of putting out the same amount of energy as a parent as I would a kids pastor or a youth pastor. If I can put out the energy to plan an all-nighter or a Nerf fight at church, I can do that for my son for his birthday party or for whatever. So we batch out the entire timeline. It's not just one big thing of time that we hope to fill. No, we intentionally map out hour 1, hour 2, hour 3, or the first 2 hours, or the second 2 hours, or the third 3 hours, and so forth. And we just fill in the gaps of what we think is important. Some of the important details you should consider whenever you are planning these out is 1, food, as in every 3 hours, something should be going in their tummy. That might be a snack. It might be an actual meal. It might be planned drinks. 2 is is understanding the nutritional value of the food you're putting in their tummy, such as that's a lot of sugar. Do we want them to have soda versus not have soda? And sometimes you want them to have soda because it keeps them awake, keeps them active for whatever is about to happen next. And other times it's like, too much sugar, it gets real crazy in here. All right. Then you want to consider all the activities. You want active activities and not so active activities. You want some thinking activities and some monotonous activities. So, for example, we would have crafts for an hour. We would have, not laser. Well, maybe we might do laser tag, but when laser tag was not an option, we went right into Nerf battle. Nerf battle was always a hit. We would have a service, right? So right away, you have 3 to maybe 3.5 hours worth of things just by talking about 3 ideas. You want to plan time for one big restroom break because I promise you, when it comes to the younger ones, they're going to hold it all night long because they don't want to miss anything. So we intentionally planned restroom breaks just so everyone had an empty bladder. And if we did the all night, we strategically put the movie right around midnight. And we did that on purpose so that if kids fell asleep, they fell asleep during the movie. And we did it in a far away room. So that if they fell asleep with their sleeping bag and pillow, they stayed asleep. And those that wanted to keep partying would end up leaving that part of the building and go have activities in the other half of the building. And we just let the other ones sleep. We had a leader just kind of designated in the hallway over in that area just to make sure everyone was safe, all that jazz. So then that's another component is how many leaders do you have? And you need a leader that's going to be with every grouping of kids. You need a leader that's going to oversee certain parts of the building. And you need a leader that's going to oversee the service. You can break that down however you want and administrate it, coordinate it, etc. But you will need to think through that. And then last but not least is how much is this event going to cost? We only charge about $15 for our small one and maybe $50 for the big one and maybe even more if we needed to. And all was contingent on 1, the vision, but 2, what was needed. So for the small one, we had to pay for food, snacks, things like that, and maybe a few little items that were necessary, like more Nerf bullets or the items for the craft. And $15 is what did it for us. And for parents to drop off their kids and come back 6 hours from now, hey, I think they were happy with $15. I mean, honestly, they dropped their kids off for karate class and they pay a lot more of that. So, right there. Those are the big pieces on how we had planned our all-nighters when we did all-nighters. The big, the middle, and the half. The pieces that you can fill in between. The most important piece is that we batch it to little parts so that you can dissect it. And then just kind of matrixing, whatever, like who does what where and who's responsible for it, right? All right, and the last part, our tips and tricks to help you as the leader. Tips and tricks to help you as the leader. And I did not know this one trick until it was too late. Well, that's not true. It was probably 4 or 5 different all-nighters later. One, get some rest before you execute. that day, take a nap. That day, eat good, so that when evening comes, you can be a rock star. 2, bring a rock star, like an energy drink, maybe even the 5-hour drinks, whatever, right? Shots or whatever you call them. I tried these things without that before. Oh goodness, so hard. And then I started, utilizing that particular fuel, and I was like, wow, I am never going to go through an all-nighter without one of these ever again. So there's that. And maybe you might just need some coffee. Yes. We ended up having a leader who oversaw all the snacks, the food, and the drinks just for the leaders. So that was a nice perk. And then the last, I don't have a lot of these tips and tricks. The last one is to intentionally plan leaders that were doing half-nighters instead of all night with you. So when I would do a setup for registration, I tried to recruit leaders that were not already on the team. I didn't require people to be on the team. I made it so that if parents wanted to do it with their leaders, they just say, I want to sign up with my kid. And then I would cut their cost off completely. So instead of their kid paying $15, it was free because mom was going to serve. And actually one of those moms ended up being more and more involved, and they became one of our directors for one of our departments. But several times throughout that particular situation, a teenager, which was a brother or sister, would get involved. A mom or dad would volunteer to help. And these were basically helpers and leaders that were not normally involved with the kids program that were now involved in helping, which didn't require any of my leaders to get tired or resent ministry or get burned out. So, and how we did it was I would be like, hey, do you want to be a first leader, a ladder leader, or the whole night leader, right? And so if they chose to be the first leader, they'd just be there from start till midnight. If they chose to be the ladder, they'd show up around midnight and then stay till morning. But if they wanted to be an all-nighter like me, we just did it all night long. And there wasn't many of those, but the point is I offered that solution so that not every one of us was tired all night long. Yeah, that's how we did it. And so there you go. All-nighters. You're crazy if you're going to plan one of these and do one of these. But hey, you'll love it because the kids love it, and you'll laugh, even if it's from being slap happy. You have the 3 ways that I've seen it. You have the key point is just to batch, and you have a couple tips and tricks in order to help you survive the night, which especially involves fuel and snacks just for you. I think a big one is I never bought snacks that I wanted to see leftovers of. If we were going to buy things, I bought things that I would take home and be happy to take home if no one else wanted them. Because we all know we buy that stuff and no one needs it. Now, mom and dad, for those of you that are doing all-nighters at home with your kids, that's super fun, super exciting. It's obviously a smaller environment, like you're talking 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 or 7 kids. Maybe I think the one time we did a late night thing with 10 kids at our house. That was a little crazy, but it was the same basic idea. We batched out the different hours, gave them something to do. Now, the smaller the group, the more we can be loose with that, because the smaller groups tend to all be on the same page about what they want to do. And we kind of, instead of giving them a schedule, it was more like, here's 10 options for you guys to pick from. And we let them just pick or decide or give them direction to lead themselves. Honestly, my boy, he just wants to play video games like 90% of the time. So he would invite his friends that only want to play video games. So it was super easy to play video games all night long because I grew up doing that, and that was fun, reliving those moments with my boy. There you have it. All-nighters. How exciting. How fun. How crazy. If you've got questions on how to be more successful, or maybe details of something you've heard here, happy to answer. I'm sure there's lots of kids pastors and youth pastors that you can find that have done versions of these, and they will hook you up with the wisdom. So if you want mine or more of mine, hit me up, RonGaleMinistries.com. Until next time, everybody say bye, Pastor Mom. Thank you for listening. Smash those like buttons, turn the bells blue, or whatever the kids are doing these days. At the end of the day, our goal is to raise little people to one day become big people. You can find older archived podcasts on our YouTube channel and support what we do at RonGaleMinistries.com. Enjoy!